What's up, everybody? It's Mike Dussault, Evan Lazar, and we are back. Evan, training camp is just around the corner, and we're here today. We're going to highlight a few position battles that we want to look at. Maybe battles is the wrong word for it, Evan, but just some good competition, as always, in training camp. These are the ones, to me and you, I think that are probably the most interesting. Of course, competition across the roster, that's what training camp's about, but these are the ones we're going to be taking a look at. Evan, let's start us off right here with the offensive line. The first one, very interesting, about tackle, big position, also some young guys coming into the mix here with the rookie class.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how they sort all of this out. And an old Dante Scarnecchia-ism is, it's the collection of 5 guys, right? It's not always the best 5 on paper that you go into the season with. It's the 5 guys that have the best chemistry, that play the best together. So I think the big question is at tackle, do you stick with what you expect the depth chart to be, which is probably Trent Brown on the left side and one of the newcomers, Riley Reef or Calvin Anderson on the right side, or do you have to get creative with it? And one thing I've sort of floated out there a little bit is Mike Onwenu kicking back out to right tackle. You draft these 3 interior linemen in the rookie class, the 4th and 5th round, and maybe a guy like Antonio Mafi emerges as a right guard option, or Jake Andrews emerges as a right guard option. And if that's going to be the case, then it gives you a little bit of flexibility with Mike Onwenu. But at the end of the day, I think we both agree that tackle might be a little bit of a deficiency for this team. They're going to have to work around it, and they're going to have to coach around it, and that's why Bill O'Brien and Adrian Clem are here.
Yeah, we'll see where Trent Brown is as we open up camp. Didn't really participate, was there for mini camp, wasn't an active participant though, so not sure what's going on there. City So, another guy, rookie, played some tackle. Not sure how it's all going to play out. Long time around here though, tackle had been a secure spot. You always knew what you were kind of getting. This year we've got a little bit of uncertainty. Now moving on to the next one, hey, it's the position we all love, wide receiver, right? Now, this isn't so much for me, Evan, about competition as about just not really getting a sense of things yet. Juju Smith-Schuster, didn't see him at all during OTAs. Tyquan Thornton had a positive couple practices early in the spring, mini camp, he was held out. We think those guys will probably be out there, but how's it all gonna come together this year with these new receivers?
Absolutely, I think the biggest question is those spring injuries that we saw for some of those guys. Juju Smith-Schuster reportedly a knee issue lingering from last season. Tyquan, soft tissue. Like, were those just, let's be cautious, it's June, it's mini camp, it's nothing serious right now, and let's hit the ground running when we come back in July? If Juju Smith-Schuster is not out there on the first day of training camp for practice, and even, God forbid, he starts the season on PUP, then like you start to have like a little bit of a concern there about when the player is going to be ready to play. So I'm with you. You got to see some of those guys out there, especially I think those top 2 in Juju and Tyquan. And I'll go back to Tyquan. I still think that ceiling-wise, he offers you the most potential upside out of any of these guys. I think you know what you're getting with the veterans. Juju going to probably come in, be a target magnet, get like that 80, 85 catch season. Devontae Parker, big body on the outside. Kendrick Bourne, you sort of know what you're getting out of him as well. What can they get out of Tyquan in year 2? Can Bill O'Brien unlock him? Can they get him up the field? Can they move him around the formation a little bit and give him some versatility as well, and some horizontal stretching of the field too? And then you also have to talk about the back end of the depth chart, I think, as well. We were out there in the spring. It felt like they were a little thin there once you get down to the 4th, 5th receiver on the depth chart. And is it going to be one of those rookies? Is it going to be Kayshon Boutte? Is it going to be a guy like Demario Douglas? We didn't see a ton of flashes out of those 2 rookies in the spring, so I'm hoping to see a little bit more out of those 2 guys in the summertime. And we always do this with wide receivers. I'm guilty of it too. In the spring, somebody pops and you're like, all right, this guy's going to be the next guy, and then it ends up we get the pads on and it's a completely different story. So I'm not writing off either 6th round pick for the Patriots, even Boutte, who wasn't really out there at all, but we got to see something from one of those guys to push for a roster spot. Otherwise, you keep those 4 vets and then you see what happens.
Yeah, well, it looks like we're moving on to running back now too, and this is another position where it's got to get some young guys to emerge, and I think we're all excited about Ramondre Stevenson. Breakout season last year for him, showed that he could really do it all. I think the guy that's really interesting to me though is Ty Montgomery, who every time I've seen him practice for the Patriots, he's heavily involved. He looks like he's a key piece of the puzzle. We only saw him in 1 game last year. Him and Stevenson up at the top, it gives you a nice starting plate, but I think the big question is, how are these young guys going to fill in their second year? Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Pierre Strong is one of those guys that every single time I look at him, he's got that 4.3 speed. I just want to see him in space with the football. Just get him out in space somehow with the ball in his hands, and let's see what he can do, because we saw it in flashes last year against Arizona, against Vegas, but specifically that big run down the sideline, roughly 50-yarder against the Cardinals. That's the type of play that this offense just doesn't have a ton of guys that can hit that type of play. So let's get him into some space, whether it's throwing him the ball, whether it's handing it off to him, screens, like whatever the case may be, and let's see what Pierre Strong can do with the football in his hands in the open field. A big play, explosive back. And in college, he led the FBS in 50-plus yard runs, and then he comes in as a pro and he has a bunch of big runs in a limited sample size. So I really want to see what they can do with him. But you mentioned Ty Montgomery as well. Had a great summer last year. We really thought that he was going to come on strong and be that third down back. Ivan Fears has talked about him in that role as well a little bit in the offseason. So I think the one thing that's cool with him is we've seen him play a little bit of receiver and play a little bit of running back. And you know Bill O'Brien, he loves to play with formations. He'll come out, 2 tight end, running back. All of a sudden it's 5 wide. Now we're under center. We're running the football on you. And they can really mix and match it with the formations. Ty Montgomery is one of those Swiss Army knives that might be a kind of allow them to blur the lines a little bit of what is this personnel grouping, what is this formation that they're going to throw at us. One play we're 5 wide empty, the next play we're in hurry up, and now we're under center, 2 tight ends to block, and we have a running back in the backfield that can run the football. I think that that's the hope with somebody like Ty Montgomery, but he's got to stay on the field.
Yeah, Kevin Harris too. I thought looked pretty good this spring. Looked like he was in shape, looked svelte. He's always got those big legs. I mean, he's a power back, so it's exciting to think about what he might be able to bring this season as well. Now we're moving on to the next one, defensive line. And I kind of equate this one, I think, Evan, with a little bit like wide receiver. You've got the upper echelon guys, but that Devon Godshaw is going to be here. Dietrich Wise coming off a breakout season. There is some uncertainty with Lawrence Guy, who wasn't at minicamp, some reports of contract dissatisfaction. So what's going to happen there? But this has been your group with Carl Davis for the last few years that you've really relied on. Not a lot of new additions, and I would tentatively put Keon White in this mix. We saw him at outside linebacker during minicamp. I think they're working him in, but I think he could be a factor in here as well. So I think really it's just about, can this group elevate, and are there any new faces, that might emerge, not only in the defensive line, but just in the front 7 in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one name that's sort of flying under the radar because he was hurt last year and didn't have the breakout season that we all thought was Christian Barmore. I feel like that's one guy that we're not talking enough about going into this season. He had the knee injury last year, but if he's 100% healthy, looks more like he did in his rookie season, he should be an impact player on your defensive line. One of those guys that can penetrate the line of scrimmage against the run, that can get after the quarterback, as we know, and be somebody that opposing offenses have to account for and have to circle. And if you can have that interior pressure, now you got Judon, you got Uche, possibly Keon White coming off the edge, and all of a sudden you got yourself a really good pass rush. So I'm hoping that we get the year 3 leap from Christian Barmore instead of the year 2 leap. And there's a couple guys from that class. I think Mac Jones is in the same category, where you're hoping that, okay, last year didn't really go as planned, but this year, hopefully that year 2 leap comes a year later, and Christian Barmore becomes one of the better interior defensive linemen, especially as a pass rusher. I think we know that they can really use that as well. And a little bit of an unsung guy on the Dietrich Wise is, I feel like, maybe the most underrated player on the entire roster. Really took a huge step last year against the run, is a well-rounded player now, a leader in that locker room. We talk about replacing Devin McCourty's leadership, and I think sometimes you think, well, it's got to be a safety, it's got to be a corner, because that's where Devin played. But I think Dietrich Wise is one of the guys that we think could be next captain, leader in waiting. I think he's a captain last year already, and could be somebody that steps up and takes on a little bit of that leadership void. So I'm looking at a lot of those guys, though, that these last couple draft classes, Keon White, Christian Barmore, let's see what they get out of them.
All right, last one, and it's gonna be, I don't want to call it like this the craziest competition on the roster at special teams, but I think there's multiple layers going on here. And that they drafted a rookie punter, they drafted a rookie kicker, they've got 2 veterans in Corliss Waitman, Nick Folk, who have been in the league and know what it takes to kick at this level. But not only those competitions, Evan, but last year we know Patriots special teams wasn't great on the coverage, 32 ranked in Football Outsiders DVOA. There's going to be changes. Brought in Chris Board, drafted Amir Speed and Isaiah Bolden, 2 special teams guys. A lot of influx of special teams players on this roster, so it's not just the kickers, but it's how is the competition going to play out for the coverage units as well.
This team's got to be better on special teams. It's the bottom line. If they're going to win games, they're going to have to be clean in all three phases. They're going to have to win with the sum of their parts being a little bit greater than maybe the individuals in themselves, right? And special teams is a big part of that. You can't get yourself beat in the kicking game. You can't be running into the punter on 4th down and giving the offense a new set of downs. You can't be giving field flipping returns. Nyheim Hines, we don't have to remind people of that one, right? Those types of things can't happen if you're going to beat a Buffalo, if you're going to beat these good teams in the AFC East. So yeah, I agree with you 100% in terms of coverage. The actual specialists themselves, we have a competition there this summer. It's a big competition there at both kicker and punter. I think with Chad Ryland, it's hard to believe that they traded up for a guy in the 4th round and then they're going to cut him. Like, I think that he's got a pretty good chance, and we saw in the spring, big leg, certainly had a bigger leg than Nick Folk, but no pass rush or no kick rush yet. So let's see once the pads come on and they get into those preseason games how it looks. But you talk about the punters as well. I think that's a wide open competition. I think that's really anybody's game. 6th round pick, you don't feel as bad about cutting at the end of the summer if that's the way that it goes. And I'll give you one little punter-ism that you can't really see too much on TV, but the spin of the football is big. And I always watch the return guys like Marcus Jones and Miles Bryant, like how hard is it for them to field the football? And those are the types of things, the little muff punts here and there that can really flip a game. So I'm looking to see what does the ball look like coming off their foot? How does it spin? How difficult is it to catch? Those are the things that, other than hang time and distance, that will really play a factor in that competition.
All right, well, these training camp position battles, just the tip of the iceberg. So much to see in a couple weeks. And if you guys are in the area, be sure to get out there. Free practice, come out, get an up-close look at the 2023 Patriots. Of course, we'll be back throughout training camp all season long, keeping you guys updated here on Patriots.com, YouTube, all our writing, podcasts. You guys know where to find it. We'll be with you the whole way.